Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Unbound identity, and we're going to talk about how, and we're going to talk about the TaBolt. All right, this is part of a playlist, and it needs to be watched in the order it appears in the playlist. Thank you. All right, so Gary has so he's moving forward on creating the the Unbound identity platform, right? And in my humble opinion, he did he did that with the publication of Dungeons and Dragons in 1974, and he wants to change. So he's been looking at war games, and first of all, he's like, first of all, I don't care about warriors, right? Like, we're gonna say adventurers, so that we can get a wider array of humans, involved in here. And he's like, and I don't want to deal with these humans as squads. I want to know the minorest detail. I want to know the thoughts, the feelings, the personalities of each adventurer, right? And so he said, and I want people to be inhabiting them, not standing adjacent. This is huge, right? So he, in my humble opinion, he realizes if he's going to achieve unbound identity, right, he has to put the player in the character, not next to it. And this is the TaBolt. Okay, so Gary Gygax brings Dungeons and Dragons in 1974, and I'm gonna talk to you about the TaBolt. Okay, the table, the bolt of lightning that comes from the narrative change that Gary Gygax creates. All right, let's look at Shakespeare. He writes a play, right? And you can read the play, and you're next to every single character in the play. You don't inhabit it. You don't make any decisions for any of them. Oh, a playwright, an actor comes, and they are going to stand closer to this person, but that actor doesn't have the permission or the authority to change the lines, right? They could just do a single interpretation. They can't make decisions in the middle of the play for the character they're in, right? So Shakespeare's narrative mechanisms, writing a play and giving direction for how a play would be put on, is limited, right? It's far lesser. Like, it's antiquated by what Gary Gygax does. Let me explain that, all right? So, I want you to think about a storm, okay? There's the cloud. What is the cloud, okay? The stormy cloud is Dungeons and Dragons, which Gary has brought forward in 1974. So we start with Gary Gygax's 1974 Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now the Dungeon Master comes in, and they say, okay, I'm going, using Dungeons and Dragons rules, I'm going to write this story. I'm going to write 5 pages of notes to bring to the table on Saturday, and my notes are ready, and I have a quest for the 2 player characters, Thafor, the Mountain Dwarf, and Shaunce, the High Elf. Okay, so this Dungeon Master, she prepares her 5 pages of notes, and she brings the player who's playing Thafor, the Mountain Dwarf, and the player who's playing Shaunce, the High Elf, together on Saturday night, and they begin the game. Okay, and she says, "Okay, you are in a little tavern, and you are and a quest is given to you. This miner comes. Actually, this miner's husband comes and says, my wife, who's a miner, is she is out, and she was mining, but she hasn't returned from the mines, and the mine foreman, I checked with him, and he doesn't know where my wife is, and I really need to know she's safe in the mountain. Can you go quest into the mountain right now, late at night, even though there's rumors there are ghosts that in the forest on the travel away? Can you go do this quest for me?" Right? And and Thafor and Shaunce say, "Of course, yeah, we're gonna go quest right now." And so the Dungeon Master says, "Okay, thanks for accepting this quest. I'm so proud of you. Thank you." Right? And you're on your way, and you go into the forest, and it's nighttime, and you have bullseye lanterns, and you're looking through the forest, and you don't see any ghosts, but you do see a butterfly, right? And you hear the cold crick, right? Now this is all the writing of the Dungeon Master, okay? lightning strikes. The TaBolt. The lightning at the table. This is what Gary created. Listen carefully, right? Now, Shantz, the player for Shantz, the high elf, says, oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much, Dungeon Master, for reading my backstory and remembering the blue butterfly that my dead mother showed me 3 days before she died. This blue butterfly is clearly a message from my mother to return to my home village because something's wrong there. And the Dungeon Master's like, thinks to herself, but she's a good Dungeon Master. She's like, it was just a butterfly. It wasn't a blue butterfly. This really doesn't connect to your backstory. But she's a good Dungeon Master, and she's like, yes. And she, with a smile on her face, takes all 5 pages of her notes, shoves it under a Dungeon Master guide, and immediately says, so you go 180 degrees in the opposite direction, and the first thing you come across is some phosphorescent moss on a tree, right? And she is now creating every player character, creating the botany, creating the cartography on the fly, because the player character doesn't stand next to the character. Like every shamanic tale, like every playwright, like every author, like every screenplay, like every video game designer's content, this player is not standing next to the character. They are in the character, right? In Dungeons & Dragons, the mini stands in the center. There are 8 adjacents, right? Every form of human storytelling before Gary Gygax put the experiencer next to the center square, not in the center square. Gary puts the player in the center square. He puts that person in the storytelling, in the character, where they can make decisions that force the, air quotes, author to throw out everything they have and go on instinct. It's transformative. It's transcendent. It's different, and it brings forward, in my humble opinion, unbound identity, truly unbound. Every form of human storytelling before this is non-interactive. A single bullet point of what Gary has created with Dungeons & Dragons is the antiquation of shamanic tales, authoring, playwrights materials, television writers, video game writers. All of them are in the dust, relics. Nothing compared to the Dungeon Master. In addition, he goes one step further, and he says, you Dungeon Master and you player are still connected to fate. So the storm, the lightning, the center of the lightning, right, is the Dungeon Master's tale. The branch of the lightning is the player. And then the further branch, all the way down, a coruscation of narrative energy, is fate getting in the way of the player and the Dungeon Master, interrupting their tale and taking it in new directions they never expected. None of this is seen in any form of human narrative ever, in my humble opinion. And Gary, just as a bullet point of creating Dungeons & Dragons, antiquates every form of human narrative and delivers the first spark of the next stage of human intellectual evolution, in my opinion. Do you see it? Do you see how even a single bullet point, the ramifications of what he's done, are so massive? It's incredible. This is how, in my humble opinion, Gary Gygax brought forward truly unbound identity. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.